And if we think of free cities, circular economies, or Citadel, we all realize that often it emerged from a desire for more sovereignty. Money has always been local up until the time that monopolies emerge. We have two examples of grassroots initiatives, and the first one is very interesting. It's from a remote region in Mexico. It's called a Tumin, and those are I just printed those myself.
You've printed yourself, you counterfeiter.
Hello everyone, I'm David Saint-Onge. I'm the author of the book Bitcoin, Everything You Need to Know. And today I'm pleased to welcome you to this first edition of this new segment, hands-on on monetary education, where any subject is a great pretext to take a look at some fascinating monetary artifacts from my very own collection. Today, we're going to explore various local currencies that were used throughout history, each created for very different reasons. Today, we're gonna cover three main subjects. First, we're gonna explore why money has historically been local in the first place. Then we'll delve in some local currencies that were created by some authorities, as well as others that emerged from grassroots initiatives. Finally, we'll examine the reason behind the emergence of these local currencies. So a very quick slide about money always have been local, because when we think about local currencies or local money, we often think it's some kind of local money created by local people for local needs. But in fact, the very first version, the very first iteration of money was could not be more local, because it implied trust between parties of some contracts written on clay, on those little clay tablets, Sumerian tablet. Those were contracts that could create credit, so create money to credit creation, and those contracts were between two people that had to trust each other. It cannot be more local. And then you had the pre-coinage, so the proto coinage, which is all those little coin you see there, and they still needed some level of trust, and it was trust on some local, very local authorities, those city-states that were stamping them, and the people of the region had to trust this local authority with the weight and the purity of the metal of those coins. So it was during antiquity it was unrare for coin to be restamped by all those local authorities, because the money was actually the silver or the gold in the coin. That was the real unit. There is the real money there, but for convenience they were stamped, and when they were stamped, you didn't need to weight them or test the purity, because you were trusting the local authority. So those coins were totally local money, because it was reserved for the people of the region who were trusting those local authorities. And then came the empires. So we can think of let's say Alexander the Great, who came and conquered the whole region, and was able to impose the Attic standard, and then we could think of some sort of international standard for money, like an international reserve currency. And then we could think of some local money and some international currencies. It's when the empire came and were able to impose some sort of international standard. The Roman did the same thing after, and we have all the history of those reserve currency, international or world reserve currency after. But in the very first part of history of money, currencies were indeed local. And I can add one last note, that Egypt is an example of a vassal state, so a state that was dominated by another nation state, which were the Greek or the Romans, and they were able to keep their own closed monetary system, and I'm going to show you the coin I'm talking about in the next slide. All right, enough talking. Here's the fun part. We're going to finally have a look at some monetary artifacts from my own collection. Here we go. This is the collection cam right here. So here's the collection. We're gonna first have a look at some local currencies that were created by some authorities, and we're gonna start from the city level with the example of the Egyptian drachma that we just talked about, that were created more at the city level in Alexandria. It was called some civic coinage, or it was also called some provincial coinage in Romanton. And then we're gonna go up right to the Maravédi that were created by the nation states for local use. So, as I said, this is tetradrachm from Egypt. And it was Egypt own closed, yep, there you go, their own closed monetary system, and it was created for probably for some identity assertion, and basically for protectionism, because they had some advantage and inconvenient, but some advantage of using a closed monetary system. Second local currency I want to talk about are not Geld, which in German literally mean not money, but it's emergency money, basically, that were created in the 1920s by France. Right here, it was issued by Chamber of Commerce of Lyon in France, and here one from Germany, from the city of Ezeo. So yeah, so those cities were or some companies or chamber of commerce in each cities were creating their own money to alleviate money shortage. So in the 1920s there were a lot of inflation and even hyperinflation in Germany, so the whole monetary mass was not worth enough for the economy, so those local institutions had to create some alternative currency, some local currencies, to alleviate the currency shortage. So that's another example of local currency made to the city level. Then we can move to the bocade. So the bocade is from Argentina. So bocade, it's for bono de cancelación de deuda. So bocade. It's like a coupon to cancel debt, basically. So it's issued by the province of Tucumán, and again, it's for basically in this case it's a tactic. Well, it's to finance the province first when there's shortage of money, and also it's a way to funnel the inflation to the population. So basically the province is able to create more money and to finance their expenses, and they will basically funnel the inflation to the population. It's the same thing with the Maravédi. We'll see just in a moment. So yeah, so those are all basically the one we saw now were local currency that were created by institution. So we had the city level, we have the provincial level, and then we have the city, the state level in Spain during the Age of Discovery. So they were importing all this new precious metal from the Americas, and they had the world reserve currency at the time, who was the Spanish dollar, and this is 2 real right there. and a Spanish dollar is 8 real, so this is 2 real. This currency was used by merchants and for international trades and by rich people. But the people of Spain were using the Maravedi, who was at first a real silver coin, but in the end it was just a copper coin like this, a base metal coin. And I'm not sure if you can see it right here, but there's a 8, number 8 stamped right there. So basically what they did is they were restamping new denomination on coin to inflate the supply. So it was a local currency created by the state, but only used by the local population of Spain, and that could not be exchanged outside of Spain. And basically the government, instead of depreciating the Spanish dollar, devaluating the Spanish dollar by putting more base metal or removing silver from it, they were just restamping those base coin to funnel the inflation to their population. So those were 4 examples of local currencies that were issued by some authorities. Now we have 2 examples of grassroots initiatives, and the first one is very interesting. It's from a remote region in Mexico. It's called the Tumin, and those are, I just printed those myself, but normally they're like they look like some credit cards, credit card size paper, and basically they're using in their local economy, it's the indigenous people there that mostly use it, and it's a way of asserting their identity, and also it's some form of protectionism to have more circular economy. So the money they spend when they buy products, they buy some fruits. If they buy it from the local producer, the money will stay inside the region. But if they buy it from someone from Mexico, from the big city, well, the money will go to the big city, some sort of protection. It is a grassroots movement initiative that created it. But my real question, my main question here, the problem I could see is who owns a printer, because they're very crude. I mean, anybody could like order some sort of copy from someone who can print them. So I would be really interested in knowing how they control the printer. And so it let me segue to my last example. It's called the demi, which mean half in English. In French, demi in French is half in English, and it's used in an eastern region of Quebec in Canada, called Gaspésie. And basically, what they do is, instead of printing those little coupons by themselves, they basically use the local fiat currency from the government of Canada, and they cut it in half. So I'm gonna do it with some dirty fiat I own a lot of. So I will use those scissors and I will cut it in half. So when you do that, well, the money cannot get out of the region, because the only place where it's worth its price is in the region that accept demi. So if it's a $2 here, well, this half is worth $1 and this other half is worth $1. But you cannot go anywhere else in another, let's say another region, and spend half of the bill and receive half of its value. It's only in the region who accept the demi. So again, it's a way to do protectionism and having a circular, so the money will stay. If they do that, if they cut it and use it, well, they are sure that this money will not go out of the region and stay in Gaspésie. So yeah, so that's about it. That's what I wanted to show you with the collection cam. All right, very quickly, to conclude this presentation, is a short summary of the reasons why local currencies are created. As a reaction to monopoly of money, we have the Tumin and Bocate as examples. Protectionism, Again, the Tumin, the demi, and the Egyptian drachma were examples. Identity assertion, like civic coinage in antiquity, the Tumin again, as a tactic to funnel inflation to the population, like we saw with the Maravédi and the Bocade, and to alleviate some currency shortage, as exemplified by not Celt examples. All right. That's it for me today. Now back to the live stream with Jacques and the rest of today's episode. Thank you.
I think this drives us to our next segment, an important segment. It's the second part of the program of the roundtable, which really is about sharing good practices, learning from the mistakes, having hard talk, strong discussion where we agree to disagree on different perspectives within the Bitcoiners community. And in this case, we're going to be talking about an experience of Bitcoin adoption and community participation in Mérida, Yucatan, Mexico. And just to make the transition, I'm going to show you a small video. It's like 3 minutes, and it describes this Tumin, this local currency you've referred to, you've showed us, you've printed yourself, you counterfeiter. I'll just present this small video as a transition, and then we talk with Daniel and Mercedes.
The Huasteca heartlands of Mexico's Veracruz state. In Papantla, the regional capital, David Barnabe is spending his afternoon in the central square.
Hola, buenas tardes. ¿Me vende un raspado?
Claro que sí, amigo.
De vainilla, por favor.
Serían 20 pesos.
Ok. ¿Acepta Tumin?
Claro que sí, amigo. Usted me daría 15 pesos en efectivo y 5 pesos de Tumi.
This was a transaction conducted in part in an alternative currency circulating in this region.
O sea, de cuenta que es en efectivo esto. Así lo manejamos. Sí, con eso vamos a hacer una compra al compañero y nos paga también en efectivo para que también podamos invertir, pero también nos da un Tumi, por ejemplo, y compramos así.
Todos los días desde el 2010 que inició esta moneda alternativa. Y pues varios negocios de aquí de la zona se han integrado con esta moneda. Al principio no creíamos, veíamos que solo eran unas estampitas, pero sin duda es de gran valor porque esta moneda se da a conocer nuestra cultura.
Bueno, en el Tumin es una iniciativa comunitaria en la que intentamos y promovemos una moneda social con la que se intenta construir otras formas de economía social y solidaria aquí en la región. El Tumin funciona como un instrumento de intercambio a la hora de que se intercambian productos o se adquieren algunos productos principalmente de primera necesidad.
Physically, Tumin are little more than illustrated cards, but its monetary value comes from the principle that its local-only circulation retains value within the community that uses it. Lucio is on his way for an afternoon snack. He wants to eat mango, a fruit produced in this region. If he goes to a traditional supermarket and pays in Mexican pesos, the money he pays will leave Veracruz for Mexico City, where the business's financial headquarters is based. Lucio has his mango, but his money has left the regional economy. But by getting his mango from a local seller and paying for it in Tumin, a currency only accepted locally, those profits can only be spent in this region. Tumin's value to those who use it comes from the social solidarity and traditions it represents, and as long as everyone uses it agrees that these little coloured cards have a value greater than the paper they are printed on, Tumin is money. But it hasn't been without its problems. As well as convincing the local population to use the alternative currency, it has faced opposition from the federal government. In 2011, the Mexican Central Bank sued the founders of Tumin.
Bueno, acudimos al llamado, dimos los elementos necesarios y suficientes para demostrar que la solidaridad no es un delito, que la solidaridad es un principio ético y filosófico de los pueblos originarios. Entonces, hasta ahorita la solidaridad no está penada, entonces creemos que por esa razón el Banco de México, quien puso la demanda, no encontró elementos para demostrar la acusación que en ese entonces se hacía.
With the victory in court, Tumin's microeconomy expanded and today circulates in rural Veracruz as an alternative currency alongside the Mexican peso.